I'm a child of Silicon Valley. I grew up in Silicon Valley, but I went to college here in the Beehive State. And upon graduation from business school, most of my classmates took jobs working for big, respectable companies. I, on the other hand, I went to work for a little tech company that no one had heard of, a little company called Oracle. Now, most of my friends from college, they assumed I went to work for some toothpaste manufacturer. They were puzzled why I did this. They offered their condolences and wished me luck. But Oracle was this small, maverick, rapidly growing software company. And they had a really clear hiring strategy. Their strategy was pretty simple. Hire the top grads out of the top programs out of the nation's top schools. And they had a list of 17 schools that they recruited at. And they looked for this trifecta of talent: uber smart, kind of crazy driven, and likable. It's a combination that doesn't always exist in nature. And having worked there for a number of years, I can tell you sometimes they compromised on likable. Now, I didn't go to one of these 17 schools that they recruited at. I kind of snuck into their recruiting system. And really, as a result, I felt pretty lucky to work there, surrounded with all these brilliant, driven, and kind of semi-likable people. And as I worked, I watched, and I noticed some things. Now, everyone around me was smart, brilliant even, but I noticed not everyone caused smarts. Have you ever seen a really, really smart person suck the intelligence out of a room? Sort of just suck the air and the life out of the room as they prove that they're the smartest one there? Have you ever seen intelligence used as a weapon? Yeah, some of these people and these executives and these leaders were so smart that they weren't able to look beyond their own genius to see the intelligence of the people around them. See, they were smart, but they shut down the intelligence of people around them. These were people who were idea killers and energy zappers, and I came to call them diminishers because they diminished the capability of people around them. Now, if you've ever worked with a diminisher, you know the toxic effect that they have on a team. And you know that they come at a really high cost because they waste the talent and the intellect that sits around them, unnoticed often. But I saw a different kind of a leader, someone who was equally intelligent, but their intelligence had a different nature or a character to it. They had an infectious intelligence. See, they didn't use intelligence as a weapon, they used it as a tool for growth, for problem solving, for innovation, for scaling an organization. See, when these leaders walked into a room, you knew they didn't have to be the smartest person in that room in that moment. When they walk in a room, like light bulbs go off over people's heads, ideas start to flow, problems get solved. They lead in a way that brings out the best in people around them. I came to call these leaders multipliers because they were amplifiers to the intelligence of other people. And people tended to do their very, very best work around these leaders. And so I watched and I noticed. I eventually left Oracle after 17 years. And I started work with a lot of other tech companies, some that were mentioned here this morning. And I noticed something, that there's a pattern across tech companies. They're all trying to hire the best and brightest. See, we thought we were kind of special at Oracle. I found out we weren't special at all. All the tech companies are scooping up the smartest people they can. And they put a lot of energy into hiring. They put a lot of energy into stacking the deck with the best intelligence they can in the industry. But I noticed that most of them didn't pay near as much attention to how effectively that intelligence or talent got utilized. Essentially, I noticed that across our companies, that there's a lot of latent, hidden intelligence, underutilized capability. What's it like to be underutilized? In fact, I'm going to ask you, who here has had a job where you were simultaneously overworked and underutilized? Maybe like busy but bored. Okay, what is that like? And I know there's a lot of us here, but I want you to go ahead and shout that out, if not purely for therapeutic reasons. Okay? What's it like to be overworked and underutilized? It sucks. It's horrible. I can't repeat that. You all know what he said. Yeah, what is it like to be overworked and underutilized, coming into work every day knowing that you actually have more intellect, more capability, more knowledge than your current job demands? And maybe even more than your boss encourages or even allows? What happens when people get underutilized and maybe even chronically underutilized? What's inevitable? They leave. They leave, and then you have a retention problem, right? Or worse, they quit and then they stay. And then you have a toxic morale problem. Okay, I want you to think back to a time when you were underutilized, when you were working for one of these diminisher bosses. Okay, has everyone worked for someone that you might consider a diminisher? You all got one? I want you to think about that diminisher. Actually, there's a handout that was passed out, and there's a little set of 4 questions, and I want you to think about these questions. I want you to start with your diminisher and answer this first question, if you would. What did your diminisher do? And if you want, you could write it down in there, or you could just lock it in your head. I know most of us don't travel with pencils anymore, but answer the question, what did your diminisher do? And what I mean by that, I don't mean what damage did they wreak across the organization. How did they behave? How would you describe their behavior? And I want you to lock in a word or two. And then I want to invite you to answer the second question. How much of your intelligence, and by intelligence I mean your knowledge, your skills, your tech savvy, maybe your business acumen, your ideas, your creativity, how much of that brain power was that leader getting? Now, I want to be clear that I'm not asking you how hard you were working. How much of your brain was being utilized by this leader? And would you write down a number between 0 and 100, or just lock that in your head? And as soon as you've got that locked in, I'd love to have you do that for someone who was a multiplier to you. And what I mean by the multiplier is someone around whom you did your best work, your best thinking. You were at your smartest around this person. What did they do? And what impact did they have on you? How much of your brain power were they getting access to? Let me give you a second just to write down a couple key words, lock them in, and then I want you to tell me about your story. This is something I spent, a good couple years researching this, studied a couple hundred leaders, the impact that they had on others. And if we can bring house lights up, that would be terrific, if that's even possible. So I want you to tell me what it is that your diminisher did. So this is like a fill-in-the-blank exercise. They micromanaged, they manipulated, and I love it. I want you to go ahead and just shout this out. It actually feels really, really good. They were condescending. They were know-it-alls. They were insincere. Hi, Emily. They did too much email. They didn't listen. They discounted ideas. They didn't trust. Okay, over here on this side of the room, what is it that they did? They stole your ideas. They belittled. They were negative. They didn't care. Anything else? Again, if you just need to get this off your chest, now is your moment. They didn't communicate. They didn't listen. Often they withhold information. It's really hard to be smart and at our best when we don't have access to information and data, when we're kept in the dark. Okay, how much of your capability did that diminisher get? We're going to just take a random roll. See, you made the mistake of making eye contact with me, so you're going to kick us off here. Here's what I want you to do. We're going to go down this row, and I want you to just share that percentage. Now, if you didn't take the time to put a number down, you either make something up fast or you just say pass, okay? Now, I have a feeling there are some people who know how to just, there's probably some math savants in this room. Is there someone who will calculate a quick average for me? Okay, you don't have to be a math savant, like you could just have a calculator. I just need an average right here. Okay, thank you. Everyone else, maybe we'll crowdsource this as well. What would you say is the average across this? Yeah, go ahead. 35, 50, 45, 50, 36. It's a very precise man. I like this. 70, 40, 60, 50, and why don't we continue right here? 40, 30, 40, 15, 15. He's not in the row, but he's like, I would like my vote to count. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and end there. And while our friend is calculating that for us, would you tell me, what is it that your diminisher believed to be true? What assumption did they hold? They believed that they were right, that they were awesome, that they were the only one that mattered, that they were all-knowing. And 43%. Okay, so it's just a quick data sample. I did this over a really large body of people. 43%. Now, I would ask not only everyone in that row, but everyone here in the room, how much of your intelligence were you wanting to contribute? 100%. 100%. So I study leadership, and one of the things you learn when you study leadership is you learn a lot about followership. And I'll tell you what I've learned, is that people come to work every day desperately wanting to contribute 100%. And it's a little bit painful when they don't. People say, man, it's frustrating and it's actually exhausting. Giving 43% of our capability is strangely exhausting. Okay, talk to me about your multiplier. What is it that your multiplier did? They increased passion. They enabled. They trusted. They listened. They were open. They inspired. They valued. They challenged. And maybe that's a good point to stop on, because we find that we find a stark difference between these multipliers and diminishers. But we find this interesting duality in these multipliers is they tend to value, they inspire, they empower, but they also tend to be challengers. They're direct, they're challenging, they operate in this space of radical candor. Okay, how much of your capability did the multiplier get? Could we start here and do the same math exercise and go down the row? And right here. 75? 90? 100%? 95? 96. So we saw that coming. Yeah. Okay, keep going. 100? 95? I thought you said 300, and this was really going to throw me off. Okay. 100? 90? 100? 110. Okay, that does throw me off a little bit. Keep going. 100, 100, 100, and our friend 100, and our friend with 15 says 95%. Okay, while you're calculating that, what is it that, in contrast, your multiplier believed to be true? They believed that you were capable? Is that it? That they didn't know everything. So I did dozens and dozens and dozens of these interviews. I continued to do it, and what I found is that these multipliers operate from a belief that people are capable, that people are smart and capable, and given a little bit of space and maybe given a big challenge, that they can figure it out. Let me share with you what I found in this research. In studying these leaders, we found they do a number of things alike, but a very small number of things they do radically different. Very, very different. And it begins with their assumption. It starts with this assumption that diminishers seem to hold, that nobody's going to figure it out without me. Without me. And they operate from this central intelligence model of leadership. Ideas flow from them to other people. Now, the multiplier operates with this belief that people are fundamentally pretty smart. You know, you hired them smart, and they probably stayed smart. It's always shocking to me. Again, it happens a lot in tech companies, how they hire the best and the brightest, and somehow 3 months later, they're idiots. Like, how did that happen? They believe that people are smart, and they're going to figure out. It drives them to do a number of things radically different. The first is how they manage talent. The diminisher acquires resources. They're empire builders. They love to hire smart people. The multiplier, they utilize people. They utilize people's native genius, the thing that they do easily, the thing they do freely. When it comes to shaping a work environment, a culture, if you will, diminishers tend to create an environment of stress that shuts down people's thinking. Multipliers create safety for people to do their very best thinking, to be able to say what's on their mind, to express their best ideas. When it comes to setting direction, diminishers tend to give directives. They're know-it-alls, as was said earlier. They tell. Multipliers tend to define opportunities. They ask. They invite people into uncomfortable spaces, and they operate in the mode of stretch. When it comes to making the most vital decisions, the diminishers, they tend to make quick inner circle decisions that leave the rest of the organization confused and sometimes debating. The multiplier, on the most critical decisions, they invite people to weigh in. They create debate, which generates deep buy-in across the organization. And when it comes to driving for results and getting things done, diminishers tend to be micromanagers. They jump in and out. They're bungee boss. Have you all worked for the bungee boss? It's extremely disruptive. Multipliers give other people ownership and all the accountability that comes with it. And we find they get very different levels of contribution. We had 43% earlier. What is it that this little group of multipliers? 96%. We found, thank you for doing that. When we found, done in the research, done very conservatively, blind, without any of these terms, we found that diminishers were getting 48% or less than half of people's capability. Of course, paying full price, but getting half of the brain power in return, whereas multipliers got virtually all. It's double. It's double the difference there. And it stems from how these multipliers use their own intelligence. It's not like these leaders shrink. It's not like they hold back. It's not like they stay on the sidelines so that other people can be big. They play big, but they do it in a way that invites everyone else to go big, to play their very best game. One of the multiplier leaders that I've learned a lot from is Magic Johnson. Some of you know him as this great athlete. I consider him to be this great manager, great business leader as well. He described an experience that he had as a young man. So this is a picture of Magic Johnson, one of the great basketball players when he's just a young man. This is him playing for Michigan State. But I want you to go back with me to when he's a very young man. He's growing up in Michigan. He's playing high school ball, and he's a total phenom on the court. And his coach said something to him that just changed him forever. His coach said, "Irvin, every time you get the ball, I want you to," what would it be? Pass it? Who here played high school ball? High school basketball. What did his coach say to him? Yeah, that's what his coach said. "Irvin, every time you get the ball, I want you to take the shot." So he did. And he scored a lot of baskets, made a lot of points. His coach loved it. His teammates loved it. They were undefeated. And what young boy doesn't want to be on an undefeated team, right? So it's great. Now, they would win with 54 points, and Irvin would have scored 52 of those points. 50 on a bad day, right? And it was great until after one particular game. Game's over, little celebrations come to an end, the players are leaving the gym, they're out to the parking lot with their parents, and Irvin catches the faces of the parents who came, of course, to see their sons play basketball, and what did they get to see? And he said, I made a decision that I would use my God-given talent to help everyone on the team be a better player. And it was this orientation he had as an athlete and that earned him this nickname of Magic. It was given to him by this Michigan sports writer. For this uncanny ability he had, the sports writer said he raises the level of play of every team he ever plays on. And I think this captures the essence of these multiplier leaders that I observed, first at Oracle, other companies, and I've studied. It's not like they shrink. It's they play in a way that invites everyone else to play big. Okay, so leader is as diminisher, leader is multiplier. That was actually not the really interesting part of my research. What I found really interesting is that although it was fun to study these sort of narcissistical, tyrannical, bully-type diminishers, and you might be thinking about yours, sorry about that, that I found that most of the diminishing that's happening across our companies, that's happening across tech, and might be happening here in Silicon Slopes, most of the diminishing that's happening is coming from really nice people, good people, well-intended people, people who really like people, people who like the likable kinds of people, people who value their job in management, people who read management books, people like me who write management books, who with the very, very best of intentions are having a diminishing impact. So for the next few minutes, here's what I want you to think about with me is how might you, in your work as a leader, whether it's a formal management job, whether it's the teams that you're on, whether it's your community work, your home life, how might you, with the very, very best of intentions, be shutting down smart, capable people who want to contribute, who want to give everything that they've got? I'm going to share with you a few ways that I've noticed this, that I've seen this happen, the ways that we become the accidental diminisher. Now, a number of these things are things that I really struggle with, not the least of which is this first one here. Is anyone in here what you might consider to be a bit of an idea guy? Now, we idea guys, I'm going to throw myself into this bucket. We are kind of creative, innovative thinkers. We love idea-rich environments. We love creative environments. We're bubbling with ideas constantly, and we want everyone else to. So we're constantly tossing out our ideas. Hey, what about this? How about that? Have we thought about this? We think, of course, we're seeding innovation and creativity. But what's the other person's experience? What's it like to work around an idea guy? And if you actually have some experience with this, I wouldn't mind if you just shout it out right now. What happens around the idea guy? What do other people experience? Chaos, distractions, frustration. It looks like a field of rabbits, and you spend your time chasing rabbits like, okay, she's got me doing this. Okay, now I'm over here. Okay, now we're building a task force, and now a web page, and eventually you just say, I'm going to stay right here. Because this is where I end up at the end of every day, right? Having made no progress, but done a lot of work. And what happens if you actually need to come up with an idea of your own? And you happen to work around an idea guy. Maybe there's one down the hall. See, it's a lot easier to walk down the hall to the fountain of ideas, isn't it? Because it goes off every hour. It's this like trusted, reliable source. I'll just get my ideas there. Okay, what about the always-on leader? This is the person full of energy. Maybe the charismatic leader. This is the person who's always got something to say, always something to contribute, always present. Maybe the person born with the gift of gab. And of course, what do they see? They think that their energy is contagious, like they're leading a parade, they're whooping up their team like, woo, woo! Isn't this great? We're having so much fun, woo! I love my job. What's it like working for an always-on leader? Yeah. What? It's Madville. I like that. It's Madville. It's exhausting. It's draining. People are like, you are killing me with all this energy. Like, these are people, we look for a dimmer switch with these people because they don't really have an off switch. You know, case in point, what do you do when you see the always-on leader, like, coming down the hall towards your office? What do? We avert our eyes. It's like we don't want to make eye contact with these people, do we? Because they're like motion-sensing lights. Once they turn on, like, I can't figure out how to turn this thing off. Yeah. See, what happens is when a leader is always on, other people end up turning off. Just like when you work for someone who's an idea guy, you know, it's easy to get idea lazy around someone who's idea rich. What about the rescuer? This is the big-hearted leader. This is the good person. This is the person who probably teaches Sunday school. This is the person who doesn't like to see people struggle or suffer or make mistakes, or heaven forbid, fail around you. And so we step in and we offer. Now, sometimes it's a big heroic rescue, of course, but sometimes it's simply extending a hand of help. See, what happens when the leader is helpful too early or too often? What happens? Yeah, people get weak around them. And, you know, they feel, instead of like seeing this heroic rescue, they're just like, hey, I feel helpless. And sometimes we're actually at our most helpful as leaders when we don't help. When we let people figure things out for themselves. What about the pace setter? This is a leader who's leading by example, who's setting the pace. I'm going to set the pace for quality. For customer intimacy, or for innovation. I'm going to set the pace. People will notice what I'm doing, and they often do because you're the leader, and then I'll set the pace, and then they will follow, right? Leading by example. What actually happens when the leader gets out ahead of the team? Let's just say by like a car length or two. What happens? Yeah, people end up quitting. See, I learned this one from my son, my youngest, who loves to race. And for the entirety of his second and third grade in school, every morning it's, Mom, race you to the bus stop. And he loved to race Mom. Now, why did he like to race Mom rather than Dad? What's the difference between racing Mom and Dad? Yeah, see, dads don't quite get this one. My husband's actually here in the room. Because my husband's like, well, a race, I know how to race. That's about winning. See, now what's the mom mode on this? Yeah, that's kind of grandma mode, let them win. It's make it a close race, a competition. He loves racing Mom because he either wins or it's really, really close. But every now and then I would forget, and I'd have these like midlife thoughts, like, okay, this is my youngest child. This is the last one I can still run faster than. Okay, this might be the last one. Like, this might be the last person I know that I can still run faster than. So I get consumed with this, and what do? I speed up. I go tearing down. I'm sort of like channeling Dad, you know. Tearing down there, I get there first, and I look back, and what's my son who loves to run doing? It's like he's sauntering. And he gets to the bus stop, and what does he say? And I think this tells us a lot about what happens when leaders become pacers. What does he say? And to get this, you've got to nail 8-year-old boy logic. What does he say? You cheated? Okay, that's 6-year-old. What does he say? 8-year-old logic. He says, I don't want to race anymore. That's like 13. Like when they give up the will to do anything. Nah, I'm good. What does he say? 8-year-old boy logic. Nail it for me. He says, yeah. He says, and it's even more subtle than I let you win, okay? because that's like probably my 22-year-old who would say that. He says, Mom, we weren't racing that time. Yeah, it's kind of that quit and stay, isn't it? And what happens is when we lead by setting the pace for our team, we are more likely to create spectators than followers, where people are watching us do our thing. Okay, what about the rapid responder? Now, the rapid responder, this is the person who is on it. I got this. This is the person who clears out their inbox multiple times during a day. Inbox 0, ready to go. I'm on it. See a bear, shoot a bear. That's how they roll. These are people who excel at the game of whack-a-mole. You know them, right? Some of you might be them. What's it like to work around the rapid responder? Let's just say an email note is directed to you. You own it. It's yours. And it just happens to be, out of a courtesy, copied to your boss or your colleague, the rapid responder. What do? See, we all do the same thing, right? We're like, oh, I should get on that. But, okay, I got to run a report, get some data, do some analysis. Maybe I need to talk to something. By the time we even get that far in the thought process, we know they've already responded. See, when somebody else is on it, even when you own it, it's easy to just let go, hold back, kind of play it safe. Yeah, they think, of course, that they're building this agile, responsive team that can attack. But see, what are people actually like around them? Yeah, a little more like that. What about the optimist? I struggle with this one. This is the positive, can-do, we got this, we can do hard things kind of leaders. How can that possibly be diminishing? Isn't optimism great? I've read all the research, all the physiological benefits of optimism, and heaven knows, to be a senior executive, particularly in tech, you need loads of optimism just to come into work every day. How can it end up damaging your team, diminishing the capability of people around you? See, what happens when a leader only sees the upside? Yeah, they never say no, and they lead people on this kind of wild chase. But often they overlook the struggle. I had a colleague I was working with on a particularly challenging piece of research and writing, and we were nearing the end of this project, and he said to me, he goes, Liz, I need you to stop saying that. And, okay, I'm not real sensitive, but I can sense feedback coming in. He's like, yeah, no, I need you to stop saying that. I said, saying what? He goes, that thing that you say all the time. And I could see his sort of level of annoyance with me is heightened, and I'm like, well, what's that? And he goes, oh, we got this. We can do this. Hey, this can't be that hard. We can do this. I'm like, oh. See, I do say that a lot, and that's probably the fact that I joined this really small, rapidly growing software company and got thrown into management when I was still a child and just got being given bigger and bigger and bigger jobs, and you learn to say to yourself, hey, how hard can it be? Well, I've learned as a manager, you probably don't say that to your people. Because he said, Liz, I need you to stop saying that. And I said, well, but that's my way of saying, like, we're smart, we're capable, we can figure this out. And he goes, yeah, that is what I need you to stop saying. And I said, why? What was his response? You can guess it. He said, Liz, what we're doing is hard. It's actually hard, and as my manager, I need you to acknowledge it. And for those of you who suffer from overabundance of optimism, you know exactly what is going through my mind in this moment. He's saying, I need you to stop saying that. I'm like, I can stop saying that. That can't be that hard. See, what I was missing is I was missing this. Like, I'm seeing the victory, and other people are seeing the struggle. You can end up leaving people preoccupied with the downside, maybe overlooking where true great work is born. Or lastly, maybe some of us struggle from a little bit of perfectionism in the way that we lead. And I'm not suggesting like neurotic levels of perfectionism. I'm just saying, perhaps you just love that feeling of getting something just perfect, just exactly right. Like, who thrives on that feeling of just perfect work? And what, of course, you see this iterative process, this back and forth process that's leading to this A+ kind of work. What's it like working for a perfectionist? What do they see? Yeah, see, their view looks a little bit more like this. See, they see blood. They see loss. They see their work being attacked. Sometimes work done at the 90% level but executed with 100% commitment goes a lot farther than something that's 100% perfect that's executed with 50% level of enthusiasm. Where might your levels of perfection? So I'm going to ask you to pause for a minute and just contemplate, maybe it's one of these 7 things, maybe it's something entirely different. How might you, with the very best of intentions, be shutting down smart, capable people? Or even, for those of you who are building companies, how might your company culture and the growth trajectory that you've been on and the ambitions that you have, how might that culture be causing people to hold back rather than step up and do their very, very best work? I think I'm going to pause for a minute, and I'm going to ask you, in fact, if we can turn the house lights up, I don't know if it's possible. If we can, I wouldn't mind if we did. I'd love to have you turn to a neighbor, 2 or 3 other people, and share with them. We're going to take 2 minutes to do this. It's going to get loud and kind of raucous in here, which is going to be fun. I want you to just share with someone what you believe your accidental diminisher tendency might be. Okay, now before you just jump into this, let me explain a little bit. First of all, this is going to be tons of fun. I'm not suggesting that if you have this vulnerability, it makes you a diminisher. What I'm saying is it makes you just a little bit vulnerable. But what I can promise you is if you're actually having a diminishing impact, you're probably the last to know. Your team knows about it. They talk about it. They probably have therapy sessions about it. Leading like a multiplier starts with just knowing what our accidental diminisher tendency is. You know what, take 2 minutes. We're just going to call this accidental diminisher confessional moments. Share your insight, go. Okay, you've got about another 30 seconds. Okay, let me ask you to just pause that conversation right where it is. I'm going to spend the next, we've got about 18 more minutes together. I'm going to spend that time sharing with you some of the things you can do to work around some of these accidental diminisher tendencies. Before I do, though, is there anyone in here who had a little epiphany and insight just now that they might share? Someone who might be here with their company, their management team, who wants to make a public confession? Because what I can tell you is it doesn't actually get any easier than right now. Yeah, and what is it? Sometimes people have to take the battery out of the bunny. I like it. Any others? Public confession. Right here.
I have parts of all of those, and it seems like they all are admirable attributes in somebody who's not trying to lead other people.
Yeah, he's like, hey, I kind of got the whole set here. I got the whole set of blocks, but I kind of thought it was good. I thought it was admirable. You know what? Here's the thing. These are all admirable qualities. This is what people hire for, like that trifecta of talent that I talked about, like driven, smart, likable. People hire for this. But what happens when you're now in a leadership role? When you become the parent, so to speak, and you're still the performer, and people start to defer to you. Now, I'm not saying, I'm a helpless optimist. It's not that my team, I run a company, it's not like my team wants a pessimist, but what do they want from me? Yeah, reality, maybe a little empathy. I've learned to do things like signal the struggle, to say, what we're doing is actually hard. We might not be successful. Like, there's going to be a lot of bumps in this road. But it's not that you have to lose your optimism. It's not like you can't ever rescue, but you've got to know when to put the ownership and accountability back together. Let me share with you a few ways that you can create more multiplier moments around you, temper some of these accidental diminisher tendencies, and how to get the most intelligence and capability out of the people you lead. There are 5 shifts. Each of these are small, simple shifts, but they're hard. They're hard to do. Did you notice that? Did you see me countering my own optimism tendencies there? Thank you. You caught that. The first here is, I think, the most profound shift that a leader can make is moving out of the mode of answers, of telling, of giving the direction, and moving over here and operating in the mode of asking, of inviting, of asking the questions that focus the energy and intelligence of your team, asking the questions that share the burden of thinking with the people around you. Some of you might want to take, each of these comes with a little bit of a challenge. Some of you might want to take what I call the extreme question challenge. Now, the extreme question challenge is making a commitment, making a decision to take a meeting. Maybe it's a touch base with someone, maybe it's a staff meeting, an ops review, and lead that by only asking. Now, I was first given this challenge by a colleague of mine. This is back when I'm working at Oracle. I have a big job. I'm running the university for the company. But this is nothing compared to my job at home. Now, my husband and I, we have 4 kids. But back then, it was just a mere 3. But they're 6, 4, and 2 years old. And I'm talking to my buddy Brian at work. I'm like, Brian, I feel like I'm not a very good parent right now. I'm constantly telling my kids what to do, barking orders. Like, I am a little dictator in my house. I am the bossy mom. And Brian goes, Liz, you don't strike me as bossy. I'm like, let me explain bedtime at my house. Okay, who here in this room has the 642 combo pack at your house? Yeah, okay, a bunch of you. What is bedtime like in a word? Nightmare, chaos. Yeah, and so I start to tell him how this rolls. Now, if you've got the 642, like, I don't need to tell you what this is like. What is it like? How does the evening go? It starts at like 6, it ends at about 9, right? This is how it went for us. It's like, kids, time for bed, put that away, leave her alone, come over here, get your pajamas on, go brush your teeth, go back, use toothpaste, get that toothbrush wet. Okay, story time, grab a book. No, not 5 books. 1 book. You give me 1 book, and no big books, no princess books. Give me like a little book about this big with the cardboard pages, the thick pages. Okay. Good night moon's my favorite. Okay, bring it over. Okay, story time, done. Say your prayers. Into bed. Not my bed. Your bed. Out of her bed. Back to bed. No water. You're hydrated. Go to sleep. And it's not like there's no yelling. There's no yelling. It's just constant telling over and over and over and over. And it's tiresome for me. Somehow it's not tiring them out, but it's killing me. And so my buddy said to me, he goes, well, Liz, first of all, he's completely overlooking the fact. So he starts to offer a little coaching. Do you know how when you can sense someone's about to give you a little coaching? So he's about to offer coaching, and I realize he doesn't realize that this is recreational complaining on my part. I'm not looking for coaching. But yet he offered a little bit, and he said, Liz, why don't you go home tonight and just ask questions? No statements. Why don't you just ask your kids questions? And I thought about this for a nanosecond, and I responded, Well, imposible? I can't do that. That's a ridiculous idea. Like, I'm going to get home at 6. They don't go to bed till 9:30. That's 3.5 hours. That's a ridiculous idea. And I think he said something annoying like, I know. So it annoyed me into taking this challenge. And I decided that night, there would be nothing but questions come out of my mouth, no matter how hard it be, just questions. And, got through dinner and playtime. We get to bedtime, and I got to get these kids in bed, and I can only ask. And so I start with, okay, kids, what time is it? They're like, Mom, it's bedtime. See, they knew because we were doing it every night at the same time, and it starts to form a pattern, and little kids pick up on this. They're like, it's bedtime. What do we do first? Where does that go? Who needs help getting their pajamas on? Okay, who's going to be the first to brush their teeth tonight? Whose turn is it to pick a story? Whose turn is it to read the story? And that's when I might have just crossed over just a little bit out of question mode, because I think I might have whispered like, Daddy wants to read this story tonight. And then they're like, Daddy! And I said, okay, what happens after story time? And they responded, well, we say prayer. Huh? Where did that come from? And then I said, okay, who's ready for bed? Me. Pick me for bed. And, what was chaos the night before is now a race to get into bed. They get in their beds. They stay in their beds. I have nothing much to do but to stand in the hallway and wonder, how long have they known how to do this? Because it just did not seem like they knew how to do this yesterday, which is why I kept telling them over and over and giving the instructions repeatedly. But, I learned that when I operated in the mode of asking, it invited other people to find answers. It actually invited other people to take ownership. I kept this up for 3 nights because I was so fascinated by this change of dynamic in my home. And it was about night 3, I thought, I wonder if the people on my management team, the people who work for me at Oracle, they're really smart. I wonder if they don't need me telling them what to do. I wonder if maybe they just need me to ask an intelligent question. You see, the best leaders tell less and they ask more. So maybe you take this extreme question challenge. It counters some always-on tendencies, some idea guide tendencies, some rescuer tendencies. Maybe if you're a little bit always-on, prone to over-contribute, excitable, maybe you take the poker chip challenge and you go into a meeting with a set of poker chips. And I don't mean you literally take the poker chips into the meeting. Now, if you want, you can put them in your pocket, take a set of quarters if you want, or just keep them in your head. And you say, you know what, each of these chips represents something I'm going to say or contribute in this discussion. And I've only got 3. And I'm going to dispense my opinions in small but intense doses. And maybe you use one to kick off a meeting. Maybe you use one to ask a really big question. Maybe you save one to kind of close it down and move it forward. Maybe you save it for an idea that hasn't come up during the course of that. See, the best, and what's great about this is not only does it create room for other people to jump in, it actually causes you to be more heard. See, both people win in this. Certainly what I've seen is that the best leaders know when it's time to be big and play a chip, and then they know when it's time to be small and let other people step up. So maybe you take the poker chip challenge. Maybe you define a playground inside your company. Like I said, I grew up in Silicon Valley, and one of the things I get so sick of is hearing fail fast, fail forward, fail. How many instances of this saying do we have? And I think it's a lazy way to innovate. Because, see, we all know that really not all failure is the same. There's some failures that are really, really costful to organizations. And maybe the best thing you can do is say, we want you to experiment and take risks and make mistakes and fail, but here are sandboxes where you can do this. That's the other part of the business. We actually need to keep the production database running. We actually need to deliver, but this is the space where you can experiment. And it's moving from this fun house model of leadership of just try stuff, break it, have fun, to directing where people can truly experiment and take risks and go big. So maybe you define a playground, a sandbox inside your organization. Maybe you name the genius of people on your team. And what I mean by genius is their native genius, the thing that they do easily and freely. Maybe you find someone on your team that you don't quite get, that you don't quite understand, maybe the person who's a little bit of a problem. Now, I mentioned my husband and I have 4 kids, and I like to share stories about my kids because, well, actually for a couple reasons. One, well, probably 3. First is revenge. 2 is I think parenting is probably the ultimate form of leadership because you lean only with influence. You don't get to hire them, you don't get to fire them, and you just really learn to lead really like a multiplier. Another reason I do it is they're less likely to sue me than former employees or current employees. So we have 4 kids. Now, 3 of these kids have a wonderful sense of adventure, like roller coasters, they like jumping off bridges into icy waters, trying new foods, they're up for all sorts of adventures. Then there's our 4th. Now, he is different from all the other kids. On the scale of adventure, he's not over there, like he's all the way over here, off the charts, out of the room. This is a kid who was born without a sense of fear. This is a kid who, since he's been 3, has been living his life as if Red Bull were his corporate sponsor. And he lives by the motto, see it, climb it, figure out how to get down later. We were recently up at Sundance. We go up the lift, we turn our back, and he has scaled the mountain on the other side of the road. Just no ropes, no partners, just, because I just needed to climb it. So, and he operates in this think it, make it, clean up the mess, just never, ever. And he leaves this like trail of destruction behind him. Everything of value in our house gets commandeered, seconded into service in one of his great creations. I brought a picture of one of his, this is something he made when he was 13. This is like one of his little man forts. Everything of value of ours, like everything we need, gets put up in here. The problem is not this fort. The problem is where this thing is. Yeah, welcome to my life. So as his mom, as his parent, it's very easy for me to see this kid as, okay, work with me on this. It's very easy for me to see him as a challenge. Keep going, crazy, now you're in range. A liability. Dangerous, destructive, dead, or worse than dead, delinquent, right? So it's easy for me to say, for my husband and I to see him as a problem. And a couple years ago, I decided I was just going to stop seeing any of this as a problem. And I was going, now the neighbors still see it as a problem. In fact, our next door neighbors, I was just laughing at this. One of the kids came over yesterday, or a couple days ago, and he comes over to play, and I invite him in, and he always says the same thing when I invite him in. He's like, I'm not allowed to come into your house. Because they know about our son. And it's very easy to see as a problem. I decided I was only going to see what he was brilliant at. Like, what is this kid's genius? What does his mind do? What does it do naturally? What was it built to do? I spent about a year seeing it. And I have come to see him differently. See, how do I see him now? I see an incredibly creative mind. I see fearless. I see this fearless innovator. I see this bold advocate. I see this problem solver. I see this proactive kid that doesn't need to wait for permission to really do just about anything. And it has changed the nature of our relationship. In fact, he has this special smile. Sorry, Dad. He has this special smile that he saves from Mom. And it's a smile when he's done something particularly brilliant is what we'll call this. And he saves it up, and there's one that just, it killed me. I come home from a business trip. I'm gone one day. I come home. He's got the smile. He tells me, he goes, Mom, I was walking to the living room. I hit the coffee table, and I busted up a big gash on my shin. And he says, yeah, like it was like a big 2-inch gash on his shin. And I'm thinking, I didn't get a text message from my husband. I didn't get an alert from the emergency room that I now owe them $5,000. And he just rolls up his pants, and he shows me 4 beautiful stitches. And he said, I just stitched myself up. And my old reaction would have been like, oh, we live a mile from Stanford Hospital, how good. And I just was like, how brilliant. How very brilliant and how very cost-effective of you to have done this. And I've come to appreciate this. So maybe you find the person on your team who feels like just a little bit of a problem to you. And instead of seeing their flat spot, maybe you just look for their brilliance. Or maybe you do this across your whole team. And you talk about the genius that each person brings. Maybe you get everyone together and you say, what's your native genius? What's the thing you do easily and freely? And how can we better use this in your environment? I will tell you that people love to come to work where their native genius, kind of the thing they were built to do, is seen, it's used, it's spotlighted, and it's grown. That's a great place to work. Number 5, maybe you offer bigger challenges. Instead of handing out tasks to people and doling out work, maybe you offer challenges. Maybe you invite people into uncomfortable space. Kareen mentioned this work I did in Rookie Smarts. I found that we tend to do our best work when we're underqualified, when we're doing something hard that we've never done before. It sparks us into learning mode, because right now, it's not what we know that matters, it's how fast we can learn. So maybe you offer someone some bigger challenges. There's someone here who's willing to play the role of challenger with me as we kind of wrap up our time together. And I should say, it involves a rubber band stretched really tight. Emily, will you do this with me? Emily is my friend from home, student at BYU, accounting major. Are you looking for a job? Because I could market your skill set right now. Okay, so just come on up. Well, you know what? We'll do it right here. I'll come down. Okay, we'll go right here. Hopefully oh, you know what? Come on up. Come on. The light's probably better up here. Okay, Emily, here's what I'm going to have you do. You are going to be the leader in this, and you're going to be the challenger. And come a little bit closer here. Here's what I want you to do. Yeah. Okay, first of all, briefing. This is not a magic rubber band. Okay, so this could end really badly for either of us. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to stretch it as tight as you possibly can without breaking it, and then hold it there. Okay. As tight as you can without breaking it, and then hold it there. I have a backup in case this ends badly. Okay, now help Emily out. Tell her when she's there. Pull it till it breaks. What kind of monster are you? Who said this? Yeah, take the batteries out, my friend. Okay, she there? Okay, now quit looking at Emily. Just look at me. How am I? I could hang out like this all day. We're not there yet. We're there when I'm really uncomfortable and off balance. Make me more nervous. Okay, we're there, Emily. We're there. Okay, so don't back off on me. Okay, so if she just holds it there and plays this role of challenger, what are my options? I can't stay like this for very long. I can let go, or I move toward her. If she holds that position, I get to move toward her, which represents me doing what? Figuring it out, solving the problem, getting it done, doing something I've never done before, innovating perhaps, to which Emily, as my boss, would recognize my efforts by saying, "Good job." Okay. I was looking for something maybe a little more bubbly, but okay, I'll take that. I'll take it. And so now what does Emily get to do? Take a bow? What do the best leaders do? They're not just challengers, they're serial challengers. They don't let people linger too long. And she gets to do it all over again, right? Back to that point of really uncomfortable. Emily, thank you very much. So maybe the thing you need to do to bring out more intelligence and capability of your team is, instead of giving people work that they're comfortable doing, inviting people to stretch to that point where you're not going to break them, but they're off balance enough that they're forced to learn, to figure it out. Let me show this video. I kind of want to wrap up with this video and a final thought. This is from some GoPro footage taken right here on the Silicon Slopes. This is Zia. She is 10 years old, not my daughter. And this is in Park City. She has done the 20-meter ski jump, but this is her very first attempt at the 40-meter ski jump. I want you to just watch her ready herself for this. Listen to what her coach says or doesn't say, because I think it captures what it's like when people lead like multipliers. It creates a certain exhilaration. Here we go.
I'll be fine. I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Keep it straight, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Keep going 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep.
It's
That's
a
fine.
bigger 20. I got it. Okay. Here. I go. Just the suspense at the top of the first time first round. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now.
People describe working for diminishers as frustrating and exhausting. People describe working for multipliers as, truth be told, a little bit exhausting, but totally exhilarating. Here's what I think I've learned from my years of research and work, is that the best leaders aren't just geniuses. The best leaders are genius makers. They bring out intelligence and capability in people around them. They use people to their very, very fullest. You may be able to start a company on genius, but if you want to scale a company, you really need genius makers. And I guess from one Silicon Valley girl to a bunch of people who are out there collectively building and shaping Silicon Slopes, I hope we all remember that it's not free food and hip offices and like slides and fire poles and foosball tables that make a great place to work. A great place to work is a place, it's an environment where people can do great work. Because when you lead like a multiplier, people give you their best thinking, they do their best work for you, and they will look back on it and describe the experience as maybe just a big challenge, a little bit exhausting, but totally exhilarating. Thank you for letting me be part of Silicon Slopes and this summit here today, so thank you.